play old mass and free to get dirty, boy. None shall escape.
Greetings, I'm Wendell Manwarren of the Rapso crew, 3 Canal. But beyond being a Rapso man, I consider myself first and foremost a mass man. And, you know, that's a tag that I claim with pride. I grew up in Belmont in a certain time when, you know, Belmont for me was the center of the universe in terms of mass. You know, Jason Griffith was just up the street with his Sailor Mass. Ken Morris and his copper work was just across the street from where we lived. David Rudder. You know, we had about 4 steel bands in the area. Pandemonium. My mother played pan for Pandemonium. My father played King for Sally just down the road. So Belmont was real bustling. And I guess typical as a youth, you know, I was intrigued and interested, but as I get a little older, I really wasn't all that interested in actually playing mass. But I always loved the feeling at carnival time. I love going to the savannah for panorama. But the time of carnival that means the most to me and my most sort of crucial memory of carnival was Juve, and still remains the Juve. And at the age of 9 years old, my uncle Clitus, Suki, they used to call him, he took myself and my 2 other boy cousins of a similar age into town to play Juve. We didn't know what we were getting into. He gave us some crocus bag, they covered us in mud, we walked down to town, and it was shivering cold. We had to pull a chariot that was made by a guy named Jacker from up the street, and the chariot didn't work all that good. Jacker fall off, bussy head, there was a fight, and my uncle grabbed us, took us back to Belmont. And it was amazing. I never forgot it. So that when I was old enough and started to get involved and intrigued by the mass, Juve was the thing that pulled me right back in. And I just was always intrigued by a particular character in the Juve, the devil or the blue devil or the Jab Molassie. You know, and in doing my research all these years later, I realized that, you know, the Jab Molassie is probably one of the earliest characters that came out of our carnival. It came out of what is called the Camboulé. The experience where the slaves were forced marched from estate to estate to cut the cane and ended up covered in soot. And then at the moment of the Camboulé, at post-emancipation, they reenacted, you know, the Camboulé on the streets with their drums and their torches. And one of the first characters to emerge was this devil character. And it's always been a part of the carnival. And it's, for me, is one of the most fundamental characters. It's so spare and it does so much and says so much, you know. It's just a lion, a human body with a tail, horn and a fork and a tin pan making some noise. And but when the devils come to town, watch out, you know. And then we took it a couple of years later when we actually got involved in making music for our Juve band. We created a song called Blue. And at the opening of the song we said 10,000 blue devils coming down, and it was an incredible experience. It was a landmark in the Juve, you know, calendar. Many people say that Blue was the biggest Juve band ever. But for us, as the bringers of the band, it was a horrible experience, you know, because it's one thing that, you know, people appreciate your song and like your vibes and whatnot, but to be responsible for all that energy is something we weren't prepared for. But when I look back at those 2 particular moments, you know, 9 years old, being introduced to Juve, and all those years later, actually bringing a Juve band with thousands of people enjoying themselves, I feel real blessed, you know, and honored as a Trinidadian, because we are the guardians of a very special sacred ritual called the Carnival, and particularly the Juve. The Juve is a very special time. Many people will tell you that they can't explain why, but you know, Juve is the rebirth. You feel fresh. You could face the rest of the year after that.
Yes, it's 10,000 blue devil coming down. Can't play old mass and free to get dirty, boy.